Hello, hello. I am Ben Pick, and thank you for joining me in Running to Write, where I normally give questionable writing advice through writing metaphors, and I promise at some point I will eventually get back to that. But for right now, I am shifting into these productivity sprints so that way I can get back on track with my fourth novel, which I'm close to finishing, at which point I will go through all the edits. And this is all a really long-winded way of saying tonight we are doing productivity sprints. Sorry, I'm a few minutes late. Richard, it is a scorcher here. Thank you for joining in. It's a scorcher in the UK. It's a scorcher here. I went for my afternoon walk, and oh boy, I need to shower after that because I was just a sweaty mess. So I went for my afternoon walk. I picked up piles of trash. I went to where I found somebody passed out on my morning run, and sure enough, there was a pile of human poop there. So that's not something I really wanted to clean up this afternoon, but that is something I did end up cleaning up. So hooray, my neighborhood. Also, a whole bunch of shopping carts that I was planning on cleaning up later in this week just ended up in dumpsters already. So I guess people are not all necessarily the worst. I don't know. Either way, they still absolutely fail the shopping cart test by just stealing the shopping carts and wandering miles away from where they belong. Anyway, no. I wasn't covered in poop. I have a claw, and I always walk around with doggy bags because there's some really just awful people in my neighborhood who either don't clean up after their pets or just don't clean up after themselves. But yeah, so I was quite sweaty and I was not covered in poop. But I'm coming back from a wonderful weekend. I was out with family and surprisingly well rested. I mean, I did tons of driving, but I am surprisingly well rested for the weekend. And so, with that, let's get this whole thing underway. We can start writing. Oh, also, sorry, one last thing. I'm not going to be doing this episode next Monday, so instead, I'm going to be doing it on July 4th. So if you are celebrating July 4th, you can come hang out here at noon on Friday. If not, catch the replay. I will be here. I will be productive as we lead into the 3-day weekend. I did not fit any AOE in. We got to the hotel a little bit early, but unfortunately, the hotel Wi-Fi is terrible, and a lot of Wi-Fi's block certain websites. So Steam wasn't working, which means I couldn't log into AOE. And so, yeah, oh well. But I do have emulators on my computer, so I was able to just sit around playing other games. But yeah, I'm going to put my earbuds in so that way I will know when this ends. And no, actually, it's not going to make it. My newsletter for July 3rd will actually be pretty short and sweet. So I don't want to go into too many details, but I wanted to keep things short so that way you can get back to living your life. And yeah, if you want, my newsletter comes out this Thursday. There's a nice picture of a birthday dinner and that my wife made for me, and not much else. It's pretty bare bones in terms of the past month. So that is a thing. Yeah. There's one picture of food, and I make it count, I guess, even though I'm halfway through my meal at the time before I remember to probably take a picture. But with that out of the way, I'm going to get writing. So hopefully you all out there feel like being productive. And if not, we can catch up in the first break. I'm really going to try for 3 solid productivity sprints. So let's go. And we can talk about how bad Doctor Who is at some other point, or Star Wars, or any of the modern shows which are just failing in all sorts of expectations. I'm also going to reserve my critiques and reviews from only critiquing shows which I've actually watched. I watched a lot of reviews about some recent Marvel show, which is on track to just utterly bomb. And yes, everything about it makes me think that the hero is on a track to being a supervillain, considering that that is in fact the path that Dr. Octopus went on, where you need to get money so that way you can create your inventions that will help the world, but really just help yourself. And the because you can't do it legitimately, you fall in with a crowd who outright just tell you they're just going to go for extortion, blackmail, and thieving. So, yeah, quality writing right there. But yeah, I do have some interesting takes on Doctor Who because it is a champion of diversity, while at the same time, if you actually watch what they're doing, it is just awful and like whatever. Yeah, let's get into my Doctor Who theories after the first round of Pro sprints. So I will see you all in 30 minutes. And welcome back. I hope you all had a great writing session. Let me fix that. So, where did I start? Cool. Okay, so I did 392 words, which is pretty good. 392 words. And now I'm going to copy everything over and back it all up. Cool. So yeah, things are looking grim for our heroes in my story. I should definitely be able to finish this chapter and start on the next one during the next sprint. So that is looking good. And yeah, we can get started. Yeah, I don't know if I want to necessarily say everything that I was thinking about Doctor Who. Suffice, well, whatever. I can go on a 5-minute spiel. So in the finale of Doctor Who, they obviously show that the villains are evil because they go into a long rant and a long villain monologue about eugenics and trying to create a better human race and a world of wishes in which everyone is happy. And in the not so subtle metaphor, there are people, namely the recent heroes, who are sort of cast aside in that society. And it is not subtle in any way, and that's fine. I mean, obviously, it's not fine in the real world, but or the metaphor, allegory, or whatever. But that's understandable because they're villains, so they're obviously going to do something atrocious. And the fact that they were quoting certain dictators and certain mindsets is not surprising because, again, they are villains. However, the heroes of the story kind of do the similar thing where you have one woman who is functionally a doorstop where all she does the entire episode is keep a door open, which all they needed to do was just take a wedge and shove it under the door and you would have been perfectly fine. So she was functionally utterly useless. And the other character, because of the wish nature of the villain, basically she went from being this strong, interesting character. Well, for the most part, she was an interesting sidekick character to being a mother. And because, again, she was now a mother with a magic baby, or the baby was created through magic, she all of a sudden was willing to throw away her friendship. She was willing to throw away a legitimate friendship that she had created, I guess, earlier in the season, or maybe it was a season ago. I don't really remember how long it had been, but she was willing to sacrifice a living, breathing person who she knew of as a friend for the sake of her new magic baby. And so there are a lot of instances, like I said, there's the obvious instances where, like, hurting others was clearly bad. The eugenics thing that the villains were trying to do was obviously bad. Never mind the fact that the villain had changed her own DNA in order to survive a previous issue as kind of the retcon way of her escaping that issue, or escaping some of those clauses where the Doctor is the last of his kind. And so she isn't a Time Lord herself, technically, because she has changed herself. And so her entire mindset is built around hypocrisy. But then the heroes themselves are acting out to care more about this magic baby than the living people in the lives, because again, in this magic world, certain people had been unwritten because the villain couldn't conceive people being different than himself. And so because of that, the doctor's obviously going to fight against them, but the companion was willingly choosing her baby's existence, who she had been with for, less than a day because of magic, or maybe it had been 2 days. Either way, I know there's kind of like a spiral or a Groundhog Day nature to the whole plot. Oh, sorry. By the way, spoiler alert. But yes, there's a Groundhog nature to it. But if you don't remember the Groundhog Day events, then you're just experiencing day one for the first time every time. So it'll be like she was the weatherman or whomever that Bill Murray's character interacted with, who has no recollection of the previous existences within the time loop that is defined by the Groundhog Day. And all she gets is, so all she knows is like this very limited and contrived scenario with her magic baby. And so she literally gets thrown into a box where she cannot interact with the outside world, all to preserve her baby, who she's known for technically less than a day. And mind you, because she's trying to preserve the baby, she is risking real. And yes, the baby was to some extent real, and they had met that baby before, but now it's elevated because of magic. But she was willing to risk actual people who she met before, her friends' lives, for the sake of this magic baby. And so you have a scenario in which even the good guys are following the same logic as the bad guys, minus the whole kill everyone thing. So like the show is all about diversity and whatnot, except when it's not, and they're actively okay with erasing people from existence, so long as it gets to preserve magic baby, so long as they're able to hold their own ideals. So the show was just awful, and I'm glad that it's all signs point to it being canceled. And there's a bit more to it than that, but like for all the diversity that they try and include, if you actually look at what the characters are doing, it goes against those intentions. Like there are countless examples where if they follow through, then the people who they're friends with will suffer for the hero's actions. And like that selfishness is not something that should be rewarded or celebrated in the way that it is shown to be just pure good. The ends justify the means. I mean, that is kind of a villain's motto in 9 out of 10 cases. And in the end, everything works out. They're able to save everyone. They're able to bring back diversity to the world, which is great. But then the character who was this incredibly strong and interesting person, now mind you, there were some horribly written episodes like Space Babies, which I've talked about plenty of times. But her backstory had been rewritten from this strong, engaging person to just this single mother. And so she kind of becomes less by the end of the show because they didn't go through any of the, like they could have done an interesting take, and they've done it before where you have a mother traveling along with the doctor as a companion and what that means, but they just wash it all away from her engaging and compelling story to being just, oh, she was just hurrying back to be with her child, who is now, because of time, like rewritten into her past. So she never had a child before, but she was trying to get home because she didn't want to be on this adventure. And it really wasn't explained why she was so driven to be home, because she didn't really have a life worth living. And she was miserable in her life beforehand. But now it's rewritten so that she was going back home to be with her child. And so it completely changes her motivations. It completely changes everything about that character and makes her less for some kind of plot reason, I guess. Also, fun fact, they said the baby's name was Poppy, and they said Poppy 56 times in the last episode, which is terrible. And also, They resolved all the conflicts 40 minutes into the episode. And then they have the whole scene where they unwrite Poppy, then rewrite her back into the story for 20 minutes as kind of a Poppy was in Space Babies. I'm aware, but she was an orphan baby. She wasn't Belinda's baby at that point. And so they just they used magic to make her the Doctor and Belinda's baby. So she was part Time Lord and she had two hearts. And then she was unwritten from reality. And then she became just Belinda's daughter, which makes the whole Space Babies thing really contradictory if she was going back to her daughter to like the retconning that they have to do for this season to make this thing work is just absurd for no reason. Yeah. The big bad was defeated in about 3 minutes. And also the interesting big bad. So like the sub who brought about the big bad was just eaten by the big bad in a matter of very short amount of time because they didn't care to give her a compelling story. And so, yeah, this whole Doctor Who season was just a mess of contradictions and uninteresting storylines and broken plot threads and missed opportunities. So all around, not worth the watch. I have said outright that 63 yards is a nothing episode because none of the characters remember it exists. And yeah, sure, you have some of the things where you rewrite time, but at least like one of the characters knows what happened, or like the Doctor remembers or something, or they change something. But that doesn't happen. And yes, I talked about this earlier in a previous episode, but it does kind of come back, but it doesn't come back in a way that is compelling. So all it does is define that the TARDIS has a temporal boundary of 63 yards, except that she wasn't near the TARDIS. And so the entire thing just falls apart when you start thinking about what's actually happening. And yeah, let's just say that there was one interesting episode in the past, at least 2 seasons, probably more, of Doctor Who. And Space Babies was abysmal. 63 yards was a waste of time because you didn't actually need to watch it. And most of the episodes are easily forgettable. So, all in all, that is how you destroy 60 years worth of goodwill. And yes, it didn't all happen at once. It was definitely on a downward spiral. The stories were getting just absurdly fantastic. You have one of the villains impersonates Rasputin. So he does like the rah rah Rasputin dance, which was popular 2 years before the episode actually came out and just looked like it was the what are those moment in Black Panther, or maybe it was Black Panther. It was definitely Black Panther because Chadwick Boseman was still alive. But yeah, it was the what are those moment in Doctor Who, where if you, first of all, it completely stands out as something that was forced in the Black Panther movie. In the moment, I'm like, I know this has to be a reference to something, but I just don't care enough to look it up or to know what it is. And then afterwards, I found out that's from a meme from like 2 years prior. So, oh boy. Yes, that is true. I am a lot more critical of shows. I'm more critical of my time too. Like, we have a limited amount of time. And so I'm planning to we're going to start watching at some point The Last of Us season 2. And based on everything I've heard, I've just been ready to give up on that series. Like, season 1 was okay. It had some episodes that were entertaining. It had a lot of missteps, but I kind of went with it because the characters were compelling. And I'm not looking forward to a lot of shows that I'm watching. So yeah, but I ain't like 28 days later. I really didn't like 28 weeks later. Because the entire reason why the rage virus comes back, 28 days later was kind of fun at parts because I was in high school and I enjoy watching it with my friends, so I'll go watch it with him and remember good times. but I didn't really like it. 28 Weeks Later was atrocious because the entire reason the rage virus comes back is because the main character is a necrophiliac. I mean, there's no way around it. He's like, "Oh, my girlfriend had the rage virus, and oh look, she was bitten, but she's fine, which means she's fine for now." And so he kisses her, and then immediately she wasn't a carrier for it, but sure enough, hey, he now is full of rage, and yeah, Richard, I've heard a lot of things about 28 years later, and one of them involves giant swinging things, which I really just do not want to see on screen. Like it, they did it in Game of Thrones, and it's just so much worse when they're on zombies. And the fact that there's now zombie families, like that's just dumb. It's the same thing with vampires in the Van Helsing movie with Wolverine in it. I can never remember his name, but that guy. Yeah, you're right. And 28 Days Later is a great look at humanity becoming more and more depraved and becoming the monsters themselves. That's what makes zombie movies interesting, zombie TV shows, whatever. Zombie any material is how monstrous the humans become when there's the excuse for them to do evil. And so, sure enough, yes, you have some very implied SA scenes. And I don't know. And then there's the fact that you have Killian as a zombie, which is just a reference to the first one. I don't know. I'm just not really interested in seeing 28 Years Later. So, Eddie, if you want, go out and watch it on your own. Yes, you have said that many times before. I am a fighter. I will live on just pure bitterness alone. But yeah, sure. I will drag you along as far as you're willing to go, but I do recognize the fact that at some point you will probably just give up on Apocalypse without Amazon delivery and whatnot. I will just make sure that I have plenty of. I have a bike in the shed, so I'm pointing to my shed over there. I'll make sure that I have a working bicycle that is well kept, oiled constantly, and I'll get just a supply of tires for them, so that in the event of a blowout, I will always be able to bike somewhere or worst case run. Oh, and that's another thing. Running zombies, fast zombies is just a stupid concept. Like it takes energy to move around, and these zombie shows show that the zombies don't need to eat human beings to remain alive, so there's no source for that energy, which means that them just lumbering around makes it somewhat believable. But the second you get fast zombies in something, it just defies all logic and reason, because they aren't. Because in order for there to be fast zombies, especially like a year or two after the zombie outbreak, it means that there needs to be a source for perpetual energy, which is just dumb. Well, yeah, that too. They can't repair their muscles. Yeah. So the alpha, I know the cliff. Well, I don't even know the cliff notes. I know the bar moments is the best way of putting it. So back when Game of Thrones was out, there was this video of just an entire bar going crazy at specific scenes because they would show it on the big screen, and you had a whole bunch of people just drunk dancing up and down with their beers, and it's just showing how mindless the entertainment has become. That's what I know, those moments from 28 Years Later. So I know about the alpha, I know about the swinging, let's call it a rope. I know about a whole bunch of different things. Yes, exactly. The second a zombie starts running, it should just fall on its face because it takes brain power to run, to have the coordination, to move multiple things. Whereas if you're shuffling along, I can I can push past that, whatever, disbelief. What's the phrase I'm looking for? Drawing a blank on it, but I can mentally allow that in my mind. It doesn't break the fourth wall for me. It's not too um, something disbelief. Break the something of disbelief. I don't know where I'm going with that, but suspension of disbelief. Thank you, Richard. Yes, you are a writer. Thank you. Um, Fast zombies absolutely do. So shuffling zombies don't break the suspension of disbelief for me. Fast zombies do, because as a runner, I know the damage that running puts on a body, whereas walking, I even as a kid, I was able to walk for miles and miles and pretty much most of a day. And it takes, like, a lot of these zombies that are shuffling along, you can sort of tell that they're basically just perpetually falling forward, and it feels like this agony thing. And the only reason why they're able to eventually catch up with someone is, one, because they're idiots and it's a horror movie and the human being trips, or two, because they think they're safe and the zombie just sort of shows up, or three, because it's just a massive swarm of bodies and the person can't get out or they run out of bullets. Whereas fast zombies just defies all logic of what happens to a body when it ceases to be, when rigor mortis sets in. And yeah. Anyways, that has been my rants on why I'm glad that Doctor Who is about to be canceled, why I'm not going to watch any more recent Star Wars, why I'm not interested in the latest Marvel poop storm. Because again, that Ironheart follows a trajectory and storyline that was used for Dr. Octopus. Like, if she doesn't become a villain by the end of episode 6, that will break my suspension of disbelief, because there is no coming back from certain points. And she has been shown to be perfectly fine with extortion, stealing, and a whole bunch of other crimes, felonies, all to in pursuit of herself. And yes, Tony Stark invented Ultron, but he did that in an effort to better humanity. He was trying to create an AI system that would help remove the need for human beings to enter, for there to be actual firefighters and for medics and all these other things, where his robot systems, his Iron Man suits could take over and do the job for others. Where if it's a situation that's dangerous for a human being, you could just send in a robot using this AI. And it was going to be this incredible thing. And of course, the AI turned bad, as all AI does. And that's how you get Ultron. But Ultron was ultimately created to better humanity. Whereas right now, Riri's entire motivation is to get rich and to get famous. And that's it. And she's willing to lie, cheat, and steal in order to get there. So I said this before with whatever the last Marvel show was that I had no interest in watching it. I have no interest in watching Ironheart, unless, of course, she becomes like the next Dr. Octopus. That would actually be an interesting story. And I know that she's going to see the error in her ways, but after a certain point, like, you don't come back from certain things and still call yourself a hero. Plus, even if she becomes Ironheart and the next Iron Man, like, she was at scenes of crimes in her Iron Man suit. So there were records of her committing felonies. And yes, Dormammu's involved, so I'm sure there might be a wish made that undoes the damage she has already caused. But at the same time, like, that doesn't fix her as a person committing those things. So even if the world forgets that I'm talking about Ironheart just came out. I'm talking about the latest Marvel show, where all I know about it are the clips that I've seen from previews and reviews, and they're showing the same things over and over again of just the villain coming up to her and saying and recruiting her by handing her money and being like, "Hey, we're going to steal a whole bunch of stuff, but here's your money, so be happy." And she's like, "Okay, well, I'll just show up with the Iron Man suit and be your muscle." Which means that if she ever goes on to be a quote unquote hero, there is tons of evidence of her committing crimes as Ironheart. And yes, Spider-Man goes through the same thing, but Spider-Man doesn't actually commit crimes. He just gets framed for doing so. And that is a major arc that he often goes through, and he is often torn down by the press for every little mistake he does, and he suffers for it. Whereas the Ironheart character has yet to suffer. I mean, yeah, she has yet to suffer. She lost her scholarship because she was helping other people cheat, and then gets surprised that she is thrown out of college for, again, helping other people cheat. That is terrible character development. But sorry. Yeah. Let's just go ahead, do the last 20 minutes of my productivity sprint. I was trying to go for 3. We're apparently only going to go for 2. So I will see you all in 20 minutes. I'm going to finish this chapter. I'm going to start on the next, and then I'm going to call it a day, and I will see you all, do my outro, and I will see you all on Friday. So that's enough negativity. So I will try and find something positive between now and Friday, such as a show I enjoy or a book that I've had fun reading. So that's my goal between now and Friday. And welcome back, everyone. I am ready to go. That's fine. Dinner's not ready yet, but I am done for now. So, sorry, how much did I do? I did finish all the chapter, which is good. I prepped the next one, and so I'm ready to go for Friday. Distributed mess, not mess. Which means that for today, there we go, all the way to the end. So I wrote 506 words, which is pretty good. I am on chapter 38 now. I am up to 74,000 words for this book. And like I said, I will see you all on Friday, where I promise to be more positive. I have a note to myself to not discuss Star Wars, Doctor Who, Marvel, Disney, DC, anything. I have some ideas for some fun things to talk about, some good stories I'm reading, and some popcorn shows that are fun at any time. Mama Maggie Ward, thank you for joining in. And no problem about skipping. I'm glad you're here now. Please do leave a like. Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that Ted Lasso is always a good time. There is that you can pick up any episode and just start watching, and it just feels good to enjoy it. There are very few shows where that's true. I have a few interesting episodes of one, Yu Yu Hakusho, and two, One Piece, where Yu Yu Hakusho, there's a couple of standalones which are utterly fantastic. And One Piece has just this incredible episode, which is done entirely as a side story. So it's complete filler, it is all made up characters, and it's all how the people interact with those. It's how the world interacts with the world around them, thanks to the Straw Hat crew. And the only reason that show works is because of all of the massive amounts of storytelling that you need to basically watch 600-700 episodes to get there. But once you know the plot beats and everything that happens after the Marineford War arc, and actually really up till Fishman Island, because Sabaody Part 2 is just hilarious and fun. But once you get past Sabaody Part 2, like, that single episode will always make me cry, because it is just so well done. The character development is just perfect. And the way that, I mean, there's literally, as the episode goes on, you can see, like, there's pictures of the characters sort of falling into place as puzzle pieces, because the metaphor is not subtle there. But we have no connection to these characters, and in literal 10 seconds of screen time, I'm just attached to this little girl who wants to send a letter, to this one Marine who survived a traumatizing experience, to this woman who is working at a bookstore and wants to close up early so she can go watch a concert, and the people around them who just help them throughout the day. It is such an incredible story told in just a perfect 22-minute segment. Yeah, so if you're a One Piece fan, you need to absolutely watch that episode. I have it on my computer permanently, because I will always, if I'm ever feeling down, I can always go back and watch it. It is One Piece fan letter. So again, you need to know everything that happens up to Sabaody Part 2, which is after the Marineford arc, which is after the time skip, which is after a whole bunch of episodes. But once you get to that point, that is just a perfect 22 minutes of television. And yes, I understand that for a perfect 22 minutes of television, you need literal tens of thousands of minutes to get there. But trust me, if you're ever curious about the One Piece journey, start it up. It's fantastic. There's a couple of, if you want to dabble your toe in there, you can watch the Netflix season 1, which condenses a lot of the first couple of seasons. So like the first 80 episodes or the first 50 episodes, first 80 chapters of the manga. I've talked about this before. It's fantastic. It doesn't hit quite the same highs as the anime, but it absolutely streamlines a whole bunch of stuff from the earlier moments, and it creates connective tissue that wasn't there at the start of the series. So One Piece, when it starts off, it's kind of like Monster of the Week or Pirate of the Week villains, where they had to just save the crew and take things off, and Luffy has to defend himself and meet new friends and whatever. And as you go through, he meets good people, and it's kind of like very one-off episodic things until it isn't, and until there's a larger story. But the Netflix show ties everything together in a way that is very, very well done. And in fact, the ending to season 1 is a little bit corny with the song playing in the background, but there's just a fun scene where you get a character, one of the 7 warlords, showing up on a beach. And that is just, he's showing up on the beach to talk to a rival pirate, but he wants to give him some information. And that moment is so cathartic that it's just pure fun. And that's what entertainment should be. It should be fun. It shouldn't be social commentary. It shouldn't be, although things like that can be baked in. So I'm going to end my negative comments from earlier by saying a story can include everything. It can be plot driven. It can contain interesting characters. It can include diversity. It can show. One Piece is a wonderful example where there is horrible, horrible cruelty, where there is racism, slavery, fascism, a controlling secret government that is controlling the entire world, where there is apocalyptic events, where what we're leading to now, which is the world of One Piece is coming to an end. And so it will very soon be a survival to get to the high ground on this water world planet, which will devolve into an all-out war, or at least that's the theories. But it's told in such a compelling story, and all of the Straw Hats have such ravaging, terrible backstories, where a child is literally prosecuted because she knows information. And so she is hunted down by the world government and claimed as a monster because the government is just trying to murder her, and they are killing everyone who ever helped her, who knows her, who meets her. And so it seems like she's going through as a child and then as an adult. It seems like she's the one killing those people, but it's really the government hunting her down. And so, yeah, One Piece is a fantastic story. It's very long, but it is absolutely worth the journey. And with that, I will leave you all. I will see you on noon on Friday. I hope you'll have a wonderful week. Take care.